I'm on the right track, I'm finally found. You need some soul searching, the time is now. All I need is one mic.
I'm starting this one off with a little disclaimer. Don't ask me what's up with my hair color, okay? I think I left my purple shampoo in a tad bit too long. My hair color looks funky. I'm a lazy bitch. I am not refilming this thing. Hell no. So just deal with it. So I'm telling you guys this to segue into the next thing. What these people were trying to do over these months, okay, was they were trying to get me to, as my cousin Nico would say, come out of my face. They were trying to go all these different ways to kind of get me to flip out.
I'm not gonna do what everyone thinks I'm gonna do. Flip out, man.
To show that I'm like unstable, because you know that's the picture that they were trying to paint. Leanna's unstable. Leanna needs help. Leanna's up. Leanna's a big mouth. They were trying to get me to come out of my face. So in normal times, I would have responded. But after going to therapy and talking to other people, and you know, my grief counselor helped me a lot through this, and my cousin Nico, really, she helped me. It's just not responding. I started to notice that you get more results when you don't respond to people, because like the less I responded to them, the more angry they got. Like they were getting angry that I wasn't giving them the ammunition to use against me anymore, because in the past I would have flipped out. That email that I wrote to them, it wouldn't have came out the way it did. It would have had a lot more F-bombs and been like so nasty. And I learned that when I did that, I was just giving them ammunition to use against me. And so I stopped responding in that way. And, you know, people started seeing on their own how up these people were. I didn't have to tell them. I wasn't going around talking shit about them to everybody. I had a couple of people that I would vent to that I trusted, and everybody else, if they asked me, I would talk about it, but I never forced the information on anybody, okay? And I never responded. I didn't want them to, I didn't want to give them what they wanted, basically. They wanted me to flip out and freak out like I had in the past, so that they could point the finger and be like, oh, there she is, she's crazy, and use me as a scapegoat. And I wasn't going to give them that anymore. Those days were over. So anyway, let's segue into the next part here. So I wrote that email, okay, and my attorney calls me up and he tells me the good news. My aunts were renouncing their positions as executors. At that point in time, I had felt like I had been through a war. But little did I know, dude, I really was not prepared for what was about to happen. Like, when I tell you guys that so far what I've told you about my brother and his wife is nothing, like absolutely nothing compared to what happened from this point on. Things just got so much worse. They got bad. I don't even know why I thought this, but I really thought there was a possibility. Our mom died. Hopefully it woke him up. I really thought that he would act like a normal human being and just be an adult and get through this. But that didn't happen. So the next step was for my attorney to write up this agreement, okay? He was writing up this agreement called the Stipulation of Settlement. And I'm going to show you guys, okay? Okay, so let's take a look at the Stipulation of Settlement. This was the document that my attorney drew up for us. So I'm going to read it to you guys. It's written in court language, so it's a little boring, but it's not that long, thank God. Okay. So basically it is, it starts off, it says Stipulation of Settlement. It says, whereas Carol, the testator herein died on November 20th, 2016. Whereas the decedent executed a last will and testament, and it says hereinafter the will, which just means that that's what they're going to refer to it from now on, dated October 16th, 1996, wherein the entire contents of the estate were to be divided equally between her two adult children, to wit, Leanna and Stephen. And whereas the will calls for the appointment of Betty and Debbie as the substitute co-executors upon the death of the testator subsequent to the passing of her husband, John, who predeceased the testator, and whereas a probate petition was filed with this court on, and it doesn't say the date for some reason, seeking the issuance of letters testamentary in favor of Debbie and Betty. And then it says, whereas an objection to the petition was filed on March 28th, 2017 by Liana, one of the co-beneficiaries of the estate, alleging the existence of cause under SCPA S 707 to deny the issuance of letters testamentary to the proposed co-executrixes. So that was my petition that I had filed to object to my aunts being the executors. Okay, so then it says, now, therefore, the interested parties to these proceedings hereby stipulate and agree as follows. Number 1, Betty and Debbie hereby renounce their respective appointments as co-executors of the estate. Number 2, that the co-beneficiaries of the estate, Stephen and Liana, shall be appointed co-executors, and then it says in parentheses, the substitute executors of the estate. Pay attention to this part, okay? That the approval of both shall be required with respect to any action on behalf of the estate, and that both shall serve without commission, and neither shall be required to post a bond or other security. So basically what that is saying is that we cannot do anything without the approval of the other executor. So if we're going to do, whatever it is, we have to both agree on it, prior to doing it. So if we're going to sell the house, we both have to agree on it. One of us just can't go, doing something without telling the other. And again, that was added in to protect both of us. The part about commission, I explained to you guys that, any executor is entitled to a 1 to 3% commission of the entire value of the estate. In this case, it was pointless because we were just splitting everything, 50-50 anyway. Had my aunt served, they could have potentially gotten 1 to 3% of the estate, and then we would have split whatever was left after that. And the other thing about bond, I'm not 100% sure what that means, but I know in some cases they will appoint an executor, and it's almost like an insurance policy. They're, required to post a certain amount of money to kind of protect themselves. But my mom had that in her will that no bonds were needed. Okay, so all right, number 3. This is one of the most important parts. Okay, so listen closely. That all estate business is to be transacted by the executors in their personal capacity, and no surrogate shall have the authority to act in place of one or the other executor. Nothing in this paragraph is intended to preclude either party from engaging in the services of professionals, such as accountants, realtors, or attorneys. Okay, so that part right there was added specifically to render Satan's power of attorney over my brother useless. So that meant that she was not allowed to make phone calls to banks or things. She wasn't allowed to go down to the bank and use her little power of attorney thing and open up an estate account, or go down to one of my mom's mutual funds and get the money out. It made her completely useless. It should have. Okay. So then we go to the next paragraph, and it says, number 4, that each of the substitute executors will bear the cost of his or her representation individually. Filing fees paid to the court, along with the appropriate estate expenses advanced, shall be refunded from the proceeds of the estate. So basically, any legal fees, me and my brother were responsible for our own legal fees. And I wondered why my attorney added that part in. And I guess really the reason for doing so was probably to keep the fighting down to a minimal, because the more you fight, the more expensive this shit's gonna be. Okay. So number 5, this agreement may be executed in counterparts, which together shall be considered an original. In addition, fax copies shall be entitled to the same force and effect as the original. That didn't end up happening, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Number 6, that each of the undersigned signatories to this agreement represents that this agreement is in the best interest of the estate. And then it's dated, May 11th, 2017. And then we had to get everybody else to sign it. Obviously, my attorney wrote this to protect me, but at the end of the day, it protected both of us. I made it very clear to my attorney that my mom did not want my brother's wife involved in this process whatsoever. Again, I've said this in past videos. I don't know this girl, and everything I've seen from her in the past has been negative. This is a very personal thing. When a parent dies, part of the grief process is going through their stuff. That's part of your closure. This is such a personal and intimate and upsetting thing, and I don't need this whack job who I don't even know being involved in it. There's just no reason for her to be involved. From my standpoint, dude, I have a sister-in-law, okay? I would never overstep that boundary. God forbid my mother-in-laws and my father-in-law, if something happened to them, like, I would never overstep that boundary. I'd always like respect that she is there before me. I would not feel comfortable inserting myself in their personal business the way Satan was inserting herself in my mom's personal business. Somebody pointed this out in the comments the other day. This girl went and made my brother sign power of attorney over to her. People don't usually use power of attorney unless they're incapable of doing something themselves. She, like, and I'm sorry, people might think I'm wrong by saying this, but she pretty much convinced my brother that he was incapable of doing these things himself. He's very capable. Her excuse was, oh, he just started a new job. That's bullshit, because he was working at that job for like 8 or 9 months at this point in time, probably almost a year. It's just because she needs the control. I'm sorry if this bothers people, but I do think that he's in a controlling and abusive relationship. When I was like young, my first relationship, I was in a controlling relationship. And when my brother started dating Satan, and when we were still talking and he would tell me things about their relationship, I recognized the signs. When I got out of my controlling relationship, I remember I got a copy of Cosmopolitan magazine, and there was an article in there about emotional abusers. And I read this article, and I was like, holy shit. I didn't know what abuse was. I didn't know what all these personality disorders and shit were at that time when I was going through it. But when I read this article, it told the signs. And I remember them. Some of the signs were like the relationship moves really fast, the love bombing, where the person, they just put you up on this pedestal and make you feel like you are the best thing since sliced bread. That's what these abusive people do. There were so many other signs and red flags that I saw when my brother started dating this girl that really concerned me. They moved really quickly through this relationship. He would tell me, like, don't say this in front of her, don't say that in front of her. Like, that's not normal, okay? I could just tell by his overall demeanor that he was uncomfortable around this girl. He never acted like himself when she was around, and I could tell by his behavior because I recognized the way he was acting, because that's the way I used to act when I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. That's my opinion. That's how I feel, and that's how I see it. All the signs are there. It's very clear to me. If anybody's been in an emotional abusive relationship, you know what the signs are, and you can recognize it in anybody. It was all there. With that said, my attorney wrote this stipulation of settlement up, okay? And the last part of that settlement, he added this paragraph to protect me because he knew about my concerns and my mom's concerns about my brother's wife being controlling. That paragraph was added specifically because we wanted to render Satan's power of attorney over my brother useless. That's why we added that paragraph. Of course, my brother had an issue with it, of course, but ultimately, we weren't budging. I had them by the balls. So it's either you sign this or you could just spend all your money and go to court. I don't think I ever would have pushed it to that point. My attorney sent out this stipulation of settlement now, which had to be signed by my Aunt Debbie, my Aunt Betty, my brother, and me. And somehow my brother's attorney convinced my attorney that we'll get the signatures and then we could bring a copy to court and submit that. What crackerjack box did you get your law degree out of? Since when does a court accept a copy? Dude, courts always want original signatures. Come on, dude. So my brother's attorney goes and he files this thing with the court, and then all of a sudden it ends up that, whoops, the court needs original signatures. So now we have to get everything re-signed. They go send everything out to get re-signed, right? This was like in April, I think, when this all happened. It was either April or maybe the very beginning of May. May goes by, June goes by. I was like, what is going on? Like, did they sign it? Did they change their minds? Like, it was taking forever. And I would call my attorney and ask him what's going on. And he would tell me that he was trying to get in touch with my brother's attorney and he wasn't hearing back from him. I didn't know at that point if it was just my attorney making excuses, or he was being lazy, or if he was really, couldn't get in touch with my brother's attorney. So I decided, and this happened a lot, Leanna had to become her own attorney. I don't even know why I had an attorney. I did all the legwork, everything. This guy was like, it was bad. It was bad. So I'm like, why isn't this guy answering? Like, what's going on? So finally one day I said, you know what? I know this sounds psychotic, but I just wanted to get this over with so I could go to my mom's house and go through her stuff and just deal with what I had to deal with. I had like that impending doom, you know, like anxiety, like that, like just knowing that I had to do this. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, whatever. I just wanted that anxiety to go away. What's going on? So I took it upon myself. I was like, I'm going to call my brother's attorney's office and ask for his attorney. I was just going to pretend I was somebody else. And I was going to try to get in touch with him, okay? Because I was like, dude, like, what's going on? Why isn't this guy answering us? I can't make this shit up. So I go online to Google his phone number, right? And all of a sudden this PDF pops up. Like, that was like the first result on Google. And I'm like, what the hell is this, right? Yeah. Oh my God. I can't make this shit up, okay? I open this PDF up, right? And I start reading it. And it's a court document, okay? And I'm like, well, that's weird. I look at the top of it and I'm like, that's odd. I'm like, this says that the guy, the attorney, he's a defendant. Is this the same guy? Yes, it was, because this guy happens to use his middle initial and it's him. And I'm like, okay, so I start reading. Apparently, my brother's attorney and a couple of his buddies decided to make up this fake medical marijuana company. And apparently, they were selling stocks to people, but the product actually never existed. They were basically like doing some Bernie Madoff shit. The Federal Trade Commission brought a civil suit against this guy, my brother's attorney. They were like the two main defendants in this case, and his buddy. And they owed the Federal Trade Commission $4 million. So this guy was in like deep doo-doo. We'll put it that way. I don't know if he was ever criminally charged with this. So I'm like, well, no wonder why this guy hasn't been answering the phone. He's a little busy with his own bullshit, right? So now I'm like, is this guy even like a lawyer anymore? Is he in jail? Like, where is he? Does my brother even know what's going on with this guy? You hired Bernie Madoff to be your lawyer. And I'm like, does this guy even have an office? Is he even really an attorney? Like, what the hell is going on? I don't even know how this guy is allowed to still have his bar license. That's some bullshit. Imagine you go hire an attorney and you don't know that this guy is a criminal that ripped people off and sold them fake stocks. You can't make this shit up. You just can't. So I go drive by this guy's office one day. First of all, it wasn't an office, and my attorney used to make fun of him for this. It was just him. He literally like rented out this like closet space, basically. He didn't even have a real office. And I go and I look in the window of this office building. Suite that he was in supposedly was completely empty. Like, where the did this guy go? Is he like a fugitive? Is he like in Tijuana sipping pina coladas? Like, what happened to this guy? It was like Murphy's Law was in full effect here. It was like anything that can and will go wrong, it just did in this situation, right? All my mom's mail now is being sent to this abandoned attorney's office. It's unbelievable. And this guy, he's working for some new law firm in Manhattan. And I'm like, what? How did this guy get a job when he's a crook? I don't even understand this. I really don't. I don't know how this guy is allowed to practice law. It's disgusting. He's a criminal. Nice guy, but he's a criminal. He was working in this new attorney's office in Manhattan. So I'm like, oh, that's convenient. So we had to wait now on this asshole. He owes the government $4 million. Good luck with that, buddy. Wouldn't you guys know? Guess who hired this guy? Satan. Birds of a feather flock together. Just remember that. My mom always used to say that, and she was right. Finally get in touch with this guy, okay? Finally gets all the signatures. I don't even know how he got all the signatures, but he had to get all the signatures again. I'm going to end this one and come back to the next one.